By about 7,000 years ago, sea mammal hunting was established in the western Arctic, and by at least 4,000 years ago, early Eskimo people inhabited the previously unoccupied northern portion of the Arctic. Some of these people stayed in the western Arctic, developed into archaeology culture called Norton, oriented towards both maritime and inland resources. Around 2,700 years ago, the Norton culture along the Bering Strait in the western Alaska involved the Thule, a specialized maritime adapted culture. The Thule may be the ancestors of the Western Eskimo. By about 1,700 years later, the other Thule people split off from the Western Thule, expanded eastward, replaced by an older archaeology culture called Dorset, and eventually became the early Eskimo or Inuit. The Arctic culture area is the aboriginal homeland of the Inuit and Inuit, both previously called Eskimos, and Aleut. The area is vast, more than 5,000 miles stretching across the circumpolar region, and embraced by the political boundaries of the four nations Russia, the US, Canada, and Denmark, also Greenland. Despite the geographical size, the area supports a population of less than 100,000. Most of the Aboriginal people lived and still live alongside the coastline and the more formidable river valleys. Hunting and fishing was harder during the winter months because of the thick ice and snow that blanketed the Arctic. Sealskin and blubber were also used to make clothing, and materials for boats, tents, harpoon lines, and fuel for the light and heat.
A number of land animals live in the Arctic, including caribou and the important animal of the native people. Caribou are fairly large, up to 400 pounds, reindeer-like animals that can migrate in big herds across the vast tracts of the Arctic and glaze on the short Arctic vegetation, particularly lichens. In other parts of the Arctic are musk owlbears, grizzly and black and polar bears, wolves and wolverine, lynx, foxes, weasels, mink, hares and rabbits, and many rodents. The Arctic Ocean supports a wide variety of marine mammals, including specialized toolkits for sea mammal hunting throughout the Arctic. In addition, there are more than 100 bird species such as geese, ducks, and the nest in the Arctic during the summer, and many were hunted as well as sought for their eggs. Fish, including salmon, char, trout, pike, smelt, herring, whitefish, halibut, and cod, were prevalent by many Arctic peoples make use of them.
No inherited or permanent rights to resources, no territorial based politics system, few statuses, and living groups had relative little continuity or rigid organizations. The band was the largest social unit consisting of 60 to 300 people. The next smallest social group was the camp or settlement composed of several households. Camp and settlement usually had leaders who was sought out for his advice. Major organizing principle of social life was the annual cycle of movement between camps. In eastern Greenland, people occupied communal houses built of wood, stone, and sod with a single house per settlement. In central Canada, people there were no permanent settlements. Rather, people lived in small family groups on the sea ice and snow houses. Along the northern Alaskan coast, people lived in permanent villages and built houses of wood and sod with each other occupied by several small families.
Two major components, shamanism and animism. Inuit and Inuit believed in the existence of a multitude of spiritual forces and the change of the universe, including souls of humans and other animals, various seldom visible dwarfs and monstrous beings and other powerful beings. In Alaska, male spirits promenaded. Otherwise, elsewhere, the principal powers were usually female. The shaman, usually a male but sometimes a female, was the religious specialist, present in many settlements and bands, who used his or her powers to cause good or harm, to learn about the cause of the misfortune, to predict weather condition or hunting success, unleash the fury of supernatural world against others, to cure illness. A shaman underwent a large apprenticeship of practicing shamans to learn both of the symptoms and physical treatments of illness and theories and therapies of spiritual maleness. It was believed that discomfort, disease, feminine, and other ills were caused by failure or humans to behave properly and observe taboos and social rules of conduct, or were due attacks and hostile shamans, or the loss of the theft of one's soul, or the intrusion of a mysterious object into the body. Such misfortunes were treated variously forms of atonement, including public confession sins and promising improved behavior. The shaman findings and returned the captured soul or sucking out the disease-causing object.
The Eastern Arctic people had two main languages, the Inupiaq and the Kalasut. They are different names, but are considered to be the same language. And the Western people had three distinct languages, the Central Alaskan, the Pacific Gulf, and the Siberian Yupik.
Fishing was also an important source of food for the Inuit, although it was more important in certain areas than others. They mostly fished in the Arctic char, especially during spring and fall runs. Whitefish and trout were also available. During the summer, the Inuit fished from boats called kayaks. During the winter, the Inuit fished through holes in ice.